What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors sits down for what should be a simple interview, only to face a host who crosses every line imaginable? In just 35 seconds of one shocking comment, Greg Gutfeld turned a conversation into a career-defining disaster. This is the story of the night Denzel Washington got kicked off a talk show, but not because he did anything wrong, because he refused to stay silent. Let me take you back to that studio. The lights are bright, the audience is packed, and Denzel Washington walks out to massive applause. He's there to talk about his latest film, to share some stories, maybe have a few laughs. Standard late-night television stuff. Greg Gutfeld is sitting across from him, grinning that grin he always has, and everything seems normal at first. They shake hands. Denzel sits down. The audience settles, and Gutfeld jumps right in. "So Denzel, great to have you here," Gutfeld says, leaning back in his chair like he owns the world. "I gotta say, I watched your new movie. Interesting choice?" Denzel smiles, gracious as always. "Thank you for watching. It's a project I'm really proud of." "Yeah, I could tell you were trying something different," Gutfeld continues, and there's already something in his tone. Something off. Lot of social commentary in there. Very on brand for Hollywood these days, right? The audience laughs a little. Denzel's smile tightens, just slightly, but he stays professional. "Well, I think any good story reflects the world we live in. That's what art does." Gutfeld nods, but it's not a real nod. It's dismissive. Sure, but don't you think Hollywood maybe lectures people a bit too much? I mean, come on, people just want to be entertained. They don't want to be told how to think." And there it is. The first jab. Denzel shifts in his seat, and you can see it in his eyes. He knows where this is going. But he's Denzel Washington. He's not going to take the bait that easily. "I don't think telling stories about real human experiences is lecturing," Denzel says calmly. "I think it's connecting. People want to see themselves on screen. They want to feel understood." Gutfeld waves his hand like he's swatting away a fly. "Yeah, but whose experiences? Because it seems like Hollywood only cares about certain perspectives, certain narratives. You ever notice that?" The audience goes quiet. This isn't playful banter anymore. This is something else. Denzel leans forward slightly, his voice still steady, but firmer now. "I notice that Hollywood, like any industry, has room to grow. But I also notice that there are more voices being heard now than ever before. And that's a good thing." Gutfeld smirks. Actually smirks. More voices, or just louder voices? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like if you don't agree with the approved message, you get shut down pretty quick. Denzel takes a breath. A long, measured breath. "I'm not here to talk politics, Greg. I'm here to talk about a film, about a character, about a story." "But that's the thing," Gutfeld interrupts, and now he's leaning forward too. "Everything's political now, right? You can't just make a movie. It has to have a message. It has to push an agenda." "It's not an agenda to show people's lives," Denzel responds, and his voice is still controlled, still professional, but there's steel underneath it now. "It's empathy. It's humanity." Gutfeld laughs. Actually laughs. Empathy. Humanity. Those are great buzzwords. But let's be real. You're in an industry that claims to care about diversity and inclusion, but then tells half the country their values don't matter. How's that for humanity? The audience is dead silent now. You could hear a pin drop. Denzel stares at Gutfeld for a long moment, and you can see him deciding whether to walk away or to stand his ground. He chooses to stand his ground. "My values are about respect," Denzel says quietly. "About treating people with dignity. About using whatever platform I have to lift others up, not tear them down. If that bothers you, I don't know what to tell you." Gutfeld leans back again, spreading his arms wide like he's innocent. "Hey, I'm just asking questions. That's what we do here. We have conversations." "This isn't a conversation," Denzel says, and now there's an edge to his voice. A conversation requires two people listening to each other. You're not listening. You're performing. The audience gasps. Someone actually gasps. Gutfeld's smile falters for just a second, and then it comes back even bigger, even more condescending. Performing? That's rich coming from an actor. Denzel doesn't laugh, doesn't even crack a smile. I perform in films. I don't perform in real life. There's a difference. Is there, though? Gutfeld presses, and now he's really going for it. Because it seems like everything you do is calculated. Every interview, every appearance. You're always playing the part of the wise, thoughtful actor. But maybe that's just another role. The audience shifts uncomfortably. This has gone from provocative to personal, and everyone can feel it. Denzel takes a moment before responding, and when he does, his voice is quieter, but somehow more powerful. You don't know me, Denzel says simply. You don't know what I do when the cameras are off. You don't know the work I do in communities, the people I help, the causes I support. You see what you want to see because it fits your narrative. Gutfeld laughs again, but it sounds forced now. There you go again. Deflecting. I ask you a simple question about your acting choices, and you turn it into this whole thing about how I don't understand you. You haven't asked me a single, simple question, Denzel counters. Every question has been loaded. Every question has been designed to put me in a box so you can knock it down. That's not an interview. That's a setup. Gutfeld shifts in his seat, and you can tell he's not used to someone pushing back like this. He's used to guests either playing along or getting flustered. But Denzel is neither. Denzel is calm, composed, and completely in control. A setup? Gutfeld repeats, looking at the audience like he's trying to get them on his side. Did everyone hear that? I'm apparently setting up one of the biggest movie stars in the world, on my show, in front of all these witnesses. Yes, Denzel says flatly. That's exactly what you're doing. Wow, Gutfeld says, shaking his head. The paranoia is real. It's not paranoia when it's actually happening, Denzel responds. From the moment I sat down, you've been trying to provoke me. Trying to get me to say something you can use. Trying to turn this into some kind of gotcha moment. Well, I'm not going to give you that. Gutfeld leans back, arms crossed now. So what? You're just going to sit there and accuse me of being some kind of villain? That's your play here? I'm not accusing you of anything, Denzel says calmly. I'm observing your behavior and responding to it. There's a difference. So Gutfeld does what people like him always do when they're losing. He escalates. You know what I think, Gutfeld says, pointing a finger at Denzel. I think people like you have gotten so comfortable in your little bubble that you can't handle anyone challenging you. You talk about empathy, but you don't have any empathy for people who disagree with you. Denzel tilts his head slightly. I have empathy for everyone. What I don't have patience for is disrespect, disguised as debate. Disrespect? Gutfeld's voice goes up an octave. I invited you on my show. I'm giving you a platform. A platform to be ambushed? Denzel asks, and his voice is still quiet, still steady. Because that's what this feels like. The audience murmurs. Some people are nodding. Others look uncomfortable. Gutfeld looks around like he's trying to gauge the room, and he doesn't like what he sees. Oh, come on, Gutfeld says, forcing a laugh. Don't be so sensitive. We're just having a little fun here. Denzel doesn't laugh. There's nothing fun about trying to humiliate your guest. And that's when Gutfeld makes his biggest mistake, the moment that changes everything. He leans forward, looks Denzel dead in the eye, and says, maybe if you spent less time preaching and more time acting, your movies would actually be worth watching. The audience goes from murmuring to full-on shocked silence. Someone in the back row says, "Oh no," loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Denzel stares at Gutfeld, and for the first time, you can see real anger flash across his face. "Excuse me," Denzel says, his voice low and dangerous. Gutfeld realizes he's gone too far, but he's in too deep to back out now. "I'm just saying, your recent work hasn't exactly been setting the world on fire. Maybe focus on that instead of lecturing everyone." Denzel stands up. Just stands up. He doesn't yell. Doesn't throw anything. He just stands, reaches up, and pulls the microphone off his lapel. "I came here to have a conversation about my work," Denzel says, looking down at Gutfeld. "Not to be insulted by someone who clearly has no interest in anything I have to say. So I'm done." Gutfeld's eyes go wide. Wait. You're seriously leaving? Over that?" "Over disrespect," Denzel corrects him. "There's a difference between tough questions and personal attacks. You crossed that line about 5 minutes ago." Gutfeld stands up too now, and he's flustered. Completely flustered. "Come on, man. Don't be like this. We're just talking." "No," Denzel says firmly. "You're talking. I'm leaving." He turns to walk off the set, and Gutfeld, in a moment of pure panic and ego, makes everything exponentially worse. "Fine, leave. Just proves my point. You people can't handle any criticism." Denzel stops, turns around slowly. "You people." The audience gasps again, louder this time. Gutfeld's face goes pale. I meant I was talking about Hollywood people, not..." "I know exactly what you meant," Denzel says, his voice cutting through Gutfeld's stammering like a knife. "And that tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Gutfeld is scrambling now. No. You're twisting my words. I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it?" Denzel asks, and he's not moving. He's just standing there, giving Gutfeld one chance to make this right. Gutfeld opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. Look, I think we got off on the wrong foot here." "No," Denzel says. "You started on the wrong foot. You invited me here to mock me, to try and make yourself look smart by making me look bad. But here's the thing about respect. You can't demand it. You have to earn it, and you haven't earned mine." The audience erupts in applause. Actual applause. Gutfeld looks around, stunned, as his own audience claps for his guest walking off the show. People are on their feet. Some are shouting support to Denzel. Others are shaking their heads at Gutfeld in disbelief. Okay, Gutfeld says, trying to regain control, his voice getting higher and more desperate. "Let's all calm down here. This is still my show. Security." And that's when it happens. The moment that seals Gutfeld's fate. He actually calls security. On Denzel Washington for standing up for himself. 2 security guards appear at the edge of the stage, looking extremely uncomfortable. They know who Denzel is. They know this is wrong. But Gutfeld is pointing at Denzel and saying, "Escort him out. Now." One of the security guards, an older gentleman who clearly doesn't want to be in this position, approaches slowly. "Sir," he says to Denzel, his voice apologetic, "I'm sorry, but I've been asked to..." Denzel looks at the security guard, and his expression softens. "It's okay," he tells him. "I understand. You're just doing your job. I'm going. I don't need an escort." But Gutfeld, in full meltdown mode now, standing up from his desk and pointing, shouts, "I want him removed from the building. Immediately. He can't just disrespect me on my own show." The audience is booing now. Actually booing. Their own host. People are standing up. Some are shouting at Gutfeld. The whole thing has descended into chaos. Denzel just shakes his head, a sad smile on his face. "This is what happens when you give small people big platforms," he says. Not even to Gutfeld anymore, but to everyone watching. They try to make themselves bigger by making others smaller, but it never works. He walks off the stage with his head held high, while Gutfeld stands there, red-faced and furious, as his audience turns on him. The security guards follow Denzel, not to remove him, but to make sure he gets out safely through the crowd of audience members who want to shake his hand and apologize. Backstage, crew members are telling Denzel they're sorry, that Gutfeld was out of line, that they respect him for standing up for himself. And Denzel, gracious as always, thanks them and says, "It's not your fault. Some people just can't help but show you who they really are." Back in the studio, Gutfeld is trying to salvage the show. "Well, that was something," he says to the cameras, trying to force a laugh. "Guess some people really can't take the heat." But nobody's laughing. The audience is still murmuring, still upset. The energy in the room has completely shifted, and Gutfeld knows it. "We'll be right back," he says weakly, and they cut to commercial. But here's the thing. They don't come back. The show just ends. Because what else is there to say? Gutfeld tried to ambush one of the most respected actors in the world, said something that could be interpreted as deeply offensive, and then had him removed by security when he dared to stand up for himself. In the control room, producers are panicking. In the studio, the audience is leaving, and they're not happy. And somewhere in a car driving away from the building, Denzel Washington is probably shaking his head and wondering how someone could be given a platform and use it so poorly. This wasn't a debate that went wrong. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a host who thought he could bully a guest, who thought his platform made him untouchable, who thought he could say whatever he wanted without consequences. But he learned something that night. He learned that respect isn't given, it's earned. He learned that you can't tear someone down to build yourself up. And he learned that when you come at Denzel Washington with disrespect, you better be prepared for him to walk away with his dignity intact while yours crumbles around you. Because at the end of the day, Gutfeld had a choice. He could have had a real conversation. He could have asked thoughtful questions. He could have treated his guest with the respect he deserved. But he chose confrontation. He chose condescension. He chose to try and score cheap points at the expense of a man who has spent decades earning his place in the industry. And Denzel made a choice too. He chose not to play that game. He chose to stand up, speak his truth, and walk away rather than give Gutfeld what he wanted, which was a fight, a spectacle, a moment he could clip and promote. The audience in that studio saw it. They understood it. That's why they applauded. That's why they booed their own host. Because they recognized what was happening. They saw a man being disrespected for no reason other than a host's need to feel superior. Gutfeld kept talking after Denzel left, trying to spin the narrative. "Can you believe that?" he said to the remaining audience, to the cameras. "I ask a few tough questions, and he runs away." But that's not what happened. Everyone watching knew that's not what happened. Denzel didn't run from tough questions. He walked away from disrespect. From someone who had already made up their mind before the conversation even started. From someone who saw him not as a guest to interview, but as a target to take down. The thing about moments like this is they reveal character. And the character revealed, that night wasn't Denzel's. We already knew who Denzel was. Decades of work, of professionalism, of using his voice for good had already shown us that. No, the character revealed was Gutfeld's. When you have someone like Denzel Washington sitting across from you, you have an opportunity. An opportunity to have a real conversation with someone who has lived an extraordinary life, who has insights worth hearing, who has stories worth telling. You have the chance to learn something, to share something meaningful with your audience, to create a moment of genuine connection. Gutfeld had that opportunity, and he threw it away. He chose ego over curiosity. He chose confrontation over conversation. He chose to be right over being thoughtful. And when Denzel called him out on it, when Denzel refused to participate in the charade, Gutfeld's true colors showed. Because it was never about having a conversation. It was about having a platform to push his own agenda, his own views, his own need to feel superior. The really telling part was what Gutfeld said as Denzel walked away. Not the "you people" comment, though that was bad enough, but the part where he said Denzel couldn't handle criticism. Because that's the defense people always use when they've been disrespectful. They call it criticism. They call it tough questions. They call it just asking questions. But Denzel Washington has handled criticism his entire career. He's been reviewed, analyzed, questioned, challenged by people far smarter and far more thoughtful than Greg Gutfeld. He doesn't run from criticism. He ran from disrespect. And there's a world of difference. This is what happens when platforms are given to people who see them as weapons instead of responsibilities. When you have a microphone, a camera, an audience, you have a choice. You can use it to elevate, to educate, to connect, or you can use it to diminish, to attack, to divide. Gutfeld made his choice clear. He wanted the controversy. He wanted the clicks. He wanted to be able to say he made Denzel Washington walk off his show. What he didn't expect was that Denzel would do it with such grace, such dignity, such control that Gutfeld would end up looking like exactly what he is. Small. The security thing sealed it. Calling security